Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. HTM here with another solo video for the Elder Scrolls Online. You know, lately I've been doing some dungeon diving episodes here on the channel where I attempt to solo some dungeons in ESO. Now this video is going to be kind of like that, but a little bit different because I wanted to try to solo an entire overland zone in this video instead. So basically take a solo build and try to crush my way from the easiest boss to the most challenging boss in the entire zone. In this video, we're exploring the Hrothgar DLC, also known as Orsinium. This is one of the first DLC releases for the Elder Scrolls Online, and I think because of that, we see a pretty significant increase in difficulty for the world bosses here in the zone. Definitely more challenging than the base game zones for sure. So I'm on my Magicka Sorcerer solo build, the Acolyte, and I'm ready to jump into it, so let's get started. So for this first encounter, we're heading to the King Chief's throne, and I estimate this is probably the easiest world boss for this DLC zone. Now let me talk about the build quickly first. So I am on my solo Magicka Sorcerer build. I'll have a link for this build in the description. Definitely check it out if you have not already. It's a very strong, very easy to play solo build in the Elder Scrolls Online. Now in terms of the sets that we are using New Moon Acolyte combined with Mother Sorrow and the Ice Heart set. So I've got the New Moon Acolyte Lightning Staff on the front bar, and then 3 pieces of New Moon Acolyte crafted on the body. I've got 3 pieces of Mother Sorrow jewelry, 2 pieces of Mother Sorrow on the body, then of course the Ice Heart Monster Helm. If you run it that way, you do have your back bar open, so you could run something like I have on this build, a VMA Lightning Staff. That would be ideal. Of course, if you don't have that, that's fine. You could do something like a Willpower Staff on the back bar for that extra max Magicka. Now, I haven't quite decided if I'm going to be changing Ice Heart or not on this build. You actually may not need it at all because Sorcerers are one of the best damage shield classes in the game, having their own damage shield skill called Hardened Ward. And of course, you can always run a damage shield enchant on your main hand weapon as well. These are things I can talk about later when and if I update the build in the future. Now, in terms of the skills, I'm keeping it very simple. On the front bar, I'm using Bound Aegis, then Inner Light. We've got that Hardened Ward damage shield, Entropy, Consuming Trap, and the ultimate is going to be Temporal Guard. That's from the Sigic Order for that nice passive minor protection, plus an extra bonus damage shield actually when we block on our front bar, which is very, very good for soloing world bosses. Then on the back bar, we have our other lightning staff. Here I am using Elemental Drain, Wall of Elements, Channeled Acceleration, Crit Surge, Lightning Form, and then for the ultimate, I'm using the Greater Storm Atronach. You could also use the Destro Staff Ultimate if you prefer there. So that is the build. Let's get into our first world boss with the King Chief here, King of the Goblins of Hrothgar. Not too much to worry about in this fight. He does that AoE sort of lightning attack you can see. That can do some decent damage. He also has a conal effect, which we see right there. Again, you either just want to move out of the red or block. And then right there, we saw his uppercut. That's probably the hardest thing to spot, especially on the Sorcerer, because you have so much lightning going on around you. It can be hard to see him winding up that uppercut style attack, but you definitely want to make sure you block that because otherwise it's going to hit you pretty hard and it's going to stun you, which is not good. And basically, the damage is very simple to maintain on this build. It's just 2 damage over times. You'll want to make sure you maintain your Wall of Elements and then heavy attack as well as use your ultimate when it comes up. And that's about it. All right, so moving on to our second world boss encounter here in the Hrothgar DLC. This is going to be just north of the King Chief's throne, Nizchileft Falls. Probably not saying that right, but it is a Dwemer ruins. And you have, of course, all the Dwemer spiders, the Dwemer spheres, and then the world boss will get here eventually. Now, this fight is very similar to all the world boss fights here in Hrothgar in that you pretty much have a lot of adds that come out first, usually 2, even 3 waves of adds that you need to defeat before the world boss even shows up on the scene. So we've got to go through these add pulls first. We have the spiders first, and then like I mentioned, the Dwarven spheres are going to come later on. Those do hit a little bit harder. They have a spinning attack. They throw projectiles as well, which can hurt, so keep an eye out for those. But maintain your shields here, and you won't take too much damage. Of course, you want to also make sure you have Crit Surge on 100% of the time. That's going to be your main heal when playing as a sorcerer. Now, finally, with all 3 ad waves down, we do get to this guy, this robot automaton guy, who is the world boss. First attack is the big, heavy-hitting hammer, and you do want to block that because it does do pretty significant damage. So keep your block up. Of course, if you've got Temporal Guard, you get a free damage shield from blocking anyway, so why not? I did summon my ultimate here just for that extra damage over time effect. And here's the first significant attack. It's a spinning AoE, which actually staggers you. It kind of does a little mini stun and pushes you back. So you want to just step out of range as soon as he starts to build up that spin, and then deal with the ads. He'll summon maybe 5 or 6 spiders at the same time. You want to take care of those as well. So here I've gotten him down to about 50%, and we see the other major attack that he has, sort of a double conal front and back, and then he'll switch and have it on the left and right sides. So this is one of those cases where it's just so much easier to be a caster because you can just literally move out of range and not take any damage at all, and he just kind of sits there for a few seconds. If you are a melee build, this will be quite a bit more challenging. Like I said, I can just move out of the red AoEs here. I can deal with the added spiders to the fight, and then I can just go back to damaging him. My damage, as I mentioned, is a combination of heavy attacks, my 2 dots, that's going to be Entropy, which gives us a nice heal, plus Consuming Trap. Making sure we maintain our Wall of Elements, our Elemental Drain, and then that heavy attack spam does tons and tons of damage when he's fully debuffed. You can see he's doing that special attack. Again, I'm just sitting here at max range, just keeping him dotted up, heavy attack, lightning staff, and he is done. All right, moving on to our third world boss encounter. This is one of my favorites, called the Accursed Nursery. I just like the theme of this. I like how almost every world boss here has a different theme, representing a different part of the zone. It's pretty cool. This, of course, we have kind of the Briarheart and the Hagraven theme going on. So just like in previous fights, you do have some base mobs that you need to clear out first. Just clear out those basic mobs. They'll come in a few waves. Here you can see we have more Hagravens coming in. And these are casters, which can do some pretty hefty fire damage. So if you're a vampire, you might want to think about lowering your vampire level a little bit for this fight, because you do get a lot of damage coming in here at the beginning. Now I do summon my Atronach pretty quick, and that's to get a nice stun off on these ads while I heavy attack them and get their health down. Eventually you'll get some of these humanoid type Winterborn mages and Marauder types coming in. They really are not too much to worry about. I just make sure that they are standing in my AoEs, make sure I get my heavy attack on them, try to keep them grouped up as much as possible, and they will go down pretty quickly. Then finally, after about the third wave, this is where we get the big boy to come in. This is Corinthak the Abomination, who starts off kind of as a Winterborn, almost a caster-looking guy. So we're going to just plop our AoE down on the ground. Watch out for those fires. Make sure our dots are down, and then keep those heavy attacks on, as well as keeping our shield up at the same time. And you can see pretty quickly he transforms into his other form here, which is pretty interesting. So he's going to get some additional special attacks. Here you can see a big burst of damage that he kind of puts out, almost like a shotgun effect from those tree limbs. Pretty cool to see, but you don't want to get hit by it, so make sure you either roll dodge or move out of the way. Then he does have that ground effect, which comes out about 3 or 4 of those, so watch out for those as well. You can see there he's got the shotgun arms again. I love that effect. And then more ads are going to come in. This is where it starts to get a little bit dangerous. You need to watch out for the main boss's AoE effect, and then try to deal with the ads. You can take a break from the boss for a minute. That's totally fine in cases like this. You want to just make sure that you can focus on him, so I would get rid of the ads at this point. And continue to pressure the boss, come back on him, maintain your dots, and he will go down pretty quickly as well. So coming up to the 4th world boss here, the Mad Ogre's Lair. This is where it starts to get a little bit tricky. I'm actually going to swap out one of my skills for this encounter. You don't have to do this, but it can be helpful. I'm actually going to run Crushing Shock here on the front bar and just replace one of my passive skills here. So either Bound Aegis you can replace. That's what I would recommend. You could also replace Inner Light if you want. But the reason for this is our Mad Ogre here will summon a lot of healers. So that can be a pain, especially if you happen to get multiple healers healing him up. It's just really annoying. So having that quick interrupt from Crushing Shock is nice. You can see his main attacks here. He does do a fear, so watch out for that. He has a Conal as well, which we just saw there. And then here he sort of summons some ice spikes that come up from the ground. Those can stagger you, just like we saw from the Dwemer before, giving you a little bit of a stun. So watch out for those on the ground. Here I'm going to summon my ultimate as soon as I see those ads pop up. The nice thing about the Atronach is it does do an instant stun in an AoE, so I can stop them from casting right away. Can get my AoEs on the ground and then kill them off pretty quick. But there you can see the heal that I was talking about. It looks like just a channel of ice going towards the boss. That's how you know you have a healer up to deal with. So hit him with that Crushing Shock very quickly and then just dot him up, hit him with a heavy attack. And they'll go down pretty quick because they don't have a lot of health. But just watch out and make sure you knock those down as soon as you see them. There I get staggered a little bit again, but I'm just going to keep up my dots. Keep up my shield and watch out for the ground AoEs. Got my Atro back up, so he's helping me do damage at the same time. Boss is super low, so I'm not even going to worry about ads at this point. I'm just going to keep on the pressure. And he goes down. And that brings us up to world boss number 5 here at the Poacher's Encampment. Just a couple of ads I'm going to deal with on the outside before I get to the top of this hill. And then as usual, you'll see we have a lot of mobs that need to be cleared out before the boss even shows up. These enemies can hit fairly hard. That's why I have ranked this as the second to most difficult encounter here in the zone. Not only that, but we do have a lot of casters as well, which are going to ruin your day. We have healers. We also have mages, which can fear you, which results in a stun, meaning you're going to lose control of your character briefly. You're going to take more damage. So before we even start the fight, you can see you get a lot of pressure here from all of these enemies coming in. You can see the healer there is in the back. The archers are spread out. So it's going to take a little bit longer. Just have patience with this. Stack as many enemies up as you can. Like here you can see I have a good group stacked up. I'm going to drop down my Atronach, get a nice juicy stun on everybody. Hit them with my heavy attack, and they're going to go down pretty quickly after that. You can see I get feared right there from the back because I can't even see where that caster is. There's just so many enemies all around me spreading out. But it is doable. Just keep your shield up and keep heavy attacking so you maintain your magicka. So after about 3 waves of those ads, you do finally get to the main boss here, Old Snagara. And pretty interesting encounter. She can hit very hard as well. And she also puts lots of AoE effects on the ground. So those are the main things we're going to watch out for. Of course, if I see a caster pop in, I'm going to try to deal with them first. And that can be as easy as just dropping a wall of elements on the ground in front of the caster, putting on one of your dots, and then hitting a heavy attack on them. That should be enough to take them down because they don't have very much health at all. And once you deal with those casters, I'm going to go back to the main boss, refresh my dots on the boss, refresh my buffs. I have more enemies coming in as a group, so I'm going to deal with them by dropping down my ultimate again. My Atronach is pretty nice for this encounter. He's going to do good pressure on the boss while I deal with the ads if I have to. You can see the boss does have kind of that stagger shockwave that we've seen from other bosses in the zone, so try to avoid that if you can. It does come out fairly fast. You can see I've got the boss about half health, but lots of damage on the ground here. Lots of those AoE effects. You can see like a smoking cloud almost. You want to try to avoid those as much as possible. Actually, I just have the default settings here on for my ground AoEs. They're that very light red. I probably should have changed those to something that I could see better because I'm standing in a few AoEs at that point. But still, with my Sorcerer passive healing, with my damage shields, it's not enough to really hurt me too badly, and I'm able to take this one down as well. And finally, we're at what I consider to be the most difficult world boss in the Hrothgar DLC, and that's the Unfinished Dolmen. Let me just start off by saying I don't think every build can do this world boss solo. I think you need a lot of good self-healing, and you need some good shielding. So my top 2 picks, obviously, for something like this would be the Magicka Sorcerer, as well as the Magicka Templar. Those are some of the easiest builds to do this with if you're interested. Some things like stamina builds are just going to be more challenging just because of the nature of having to be in melee range and not having as much access to heals and damage shields. So just keep that in mind. But if you're running this build, then you'll definitely have a very good shot at tackling this by yourself. Just like almost every encounter we see, we have to deal with adds first. We have about 3 waves as usual. Getting some pretty heavy hitting Daedra here at the end. Watch out for those casters because they can hurt. And then we finally have the Reborn here come in at the end. This is the world boss. Watch out for that fire breath because it can hurt, and it's obviously a stun. He has a shockwave as well, which can push you back and stun you. And then here he summons these meteors, which are not too difficult. Stay away from the ground effects. But here, this is where it starts to get difficult. Portals come in, and from the portals come these scamps. And the scamps are more than likely what is going to kill you because they explode. You can see they come in, I get them low health, but then they just explode for AoE damage. And if you have 3 or 4 scamps on top of you at the same time and they all explode, you could definitely die. That's why you need good damage shields for this fight, as well as good passive healing. Luckily, we have both as a Magicka Sorcerer. So in terms of strategy, yes, you can focus on the portals. That's definitely one way to do the fight, because if you destroy the portals, then the scamps don't come in anymore. But the problem is there's so many portals that as a solo player, it's just going to take you forever to destroy all the portals. So I've tried it both ways. In the end, I usually just try to either kill a wave of scamps and then go back to the boss, or I try to stack up the scamps on top of the boss and do damage to both. And it kind of just depends on where the AoEs are and where the scamp groups are. But like right here, I can kind of stack them on top of the boss, and now I'm damaging both. At other times, I will back off and I'll go around like this altar in the back, and I'll deal with the scamps for a couple seconds, and I'll come back on the boss. So it's really a very fluid fight. You're going to be running around this whole field here to try to get the best position possible. I do like the Atronach here because of the stun. This really helps deal with the scamps. If you're having trouble, you could also consider running the Sorcerer Pet. The Pet Scamp, which also does an AoE stun, can be very helpful with dealing with these Daedric scamps. So that's another option you have here if you're struggling. But as usual, you want to keep on your Elemental Drain, keep on your 2 dots. Make sure your pet has targeted the boss. That way the Atronach is damaging the boss even while you're dealing with the scamps. Like you can see here, I'm dealing with a portal. I'm crushing down some scamps, and my Atronach is doing damage for me at the same time. So that's really good. I'm going to deal with this last wave of scamps here, and then the boss is super low, so I'm going to just reapply my dots about 1 more time. Keep those heavy attacks on, and he will go down as well. So there you go. There's my take on soloing in the Hrothgar zone, from the easiest world boss all the way to the most challenging world boss, in my opinion, for that zone, while running the solo Mag Sorc build. Hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, if you did, don't forget to crush that like button. And let me know in the comments what you think. Have you soloed this zone? What build did you do it on? And were you successful or not? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, if you're interested in this kind of solo content for the Elder Scrolls Online, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. I have tons of solo builds and guides just like this solo sorcerer build, which you saw right here. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you around in the next video.